Hello, and welcome to the Transformational Storytellers show. I am so happy today and grateful because we have someone I deeply love and admire, and just like a sister to me.
And to me.
Oh, yeah. So she's a nationally sought after speaker, author, and founder of K4 Consulting. Kimberly Urbanek, or Kim, as I call her, is an award-winning workplace violence prevention expert. We'll talk about that. And a master level instructor in crisis prevention. Kim provides customized training to teach strategic interventions that reduce violence and build conflict resolution skills. Everybody needs that, and you'll see why. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And every time we get together is always just so inspiring. So thanks for having me.
It's a delight to have you here and to make sure that everyone knows who you are and connects with you. I'm going to have all of your information in the show notes so everybody hopefully takes advantage of the wealth of information and resources that you are, but also the goodness and kindness that you emanate and just radiate everywhere you go.
Thank you. Thank you. We all need a little kindness in our lives, right? So if you start it, maybe it can continue. So
Absolutely. It's a beautiful ripple that we can all participate in for sure. And I know that you do. So, let's talk about your transformational story. That was so beautiful. And I have received so many messages, and people have told me so much how much your from self-blame to self-advocacy story has moved them. And I am just so thrilled, although it is painful. I am thrilled for everyone to know about it and start this conversation. So would you please share your story with our audience today?
thank you. Yeah, it was a situation that I had never shared with somebody. I shared it once and never again. So to share it in the gifts of pain was a process. And my story that I shared was about a friend, actually, the husband of one of my best friends, who was stopping by my house just to drop something off to me. And as he handed me the paperwork that he was dropping off, he pushed his way into my house, dropped his pants and exposed himself, pushed his body against mine, trapping me up against the wall and proceeding to, um, assault me. And I was so caught off guard, and I was so frustrated, upset, furious and angry and confused because this was a friend. This was somebody who I've known. This is not the stranger danger that we warn about. And this is somebody whose kids I babysat for. And so the whirlwind of emotions, as I tried to push back, for some reason, I absorbed all of the blame for the situation. I shared it with one person afterward, and they said, well, you must have been giving off some sort of signal, or, has anything ever happened with you before? And absolutely not. And none of those things. And, that situation, I expected to be a 30-second interaction. And it wasn't for quite some time that I realized all of the shame that I was carrying that wasn't mine to carry. And that I can't be responsible for other people's behaviors when they are supposed to be accountable.
Mm.
It is something I think that a lot of us carry. And I'm somebody that is not afraid to share my voice or my opinion, but it is something that is always a struggle for us. And I think even more so for women, because we often feel like we have to be the peacemakers. We have to make sure we're not offending somebody, that we are keeping the relationship intact. And I think we always turn inward. What did I do to cause this?
Yeah. Oof. I always get so moved by you sharing the story. It's always a healing for me. Thank you so much. And I applaud you for your bravery of sharing this because it is the best kept secret that we all carry. And I just feel for you because it is a terrifying moment. I have encountered some moments like that, like those, and it is just so relatable. And I am sure that someone, and probably everyone who is tuning in today, at least the vast majority, can relate to a situation like this, in which, whether it was an assault or not, in which someone did something and we ended up blaming ourselves for it. It is just so terrible to compound the injury with the self-blame.
Yeah, it,
Wow.
it really then creates this darkness, right? That I can't talk about or I can't share or that I hold that with confusion. So you're not sure how to move forward because you're not sure what you did. And so to be able to share the story and to acknowledge where accountability needs to lie and to be able to find a voice is really, I think, the way that we can start to heal some of those wounds and learn from them.
I love that. And when you said about your friend, or the person who asked, what signals were you sending, or what did you do, and has this happened before? The answer for me, and I'm going to speak to those of us who are always accused of sending signals. For you, it was an immediate no. For me, before, it would have been like, yes, I probably did, because of my personality and I call it my muchness. And has this happened to me before? Yes, it has happened. It's happened many times. And so I think that whether it has happened to you before or not, and whether you felt or they felt that you sent a signal or not, I think that, as you said, accountability doesn't lie with you. And that is so liberating to hear. And I want to say it again. That's why I want to repeat it. It is so important that we don't blame ourselves for somebody else's actions, that it wasn't your fault. You didn't have assault me or attack me or come on to me or whatever it is. You didn't have a sign. You didn't verbally invite it. So that is not consent. Say a signal that you interpret is not consent. So thank you
And
for
if I
that.
thank you, and if I can just add to that, even if there were signals before, even if there was something before, I just want to be really clear that never makes it okay to assume or to assume consent or to become aggressive and demand and expect.
Yes.
So I love your muchness, and if somebody interprets your muchness differently, That's fine. But when you create a boundary, regardless of when and where, we need to make sure that people understand a boundary is a boundary.
Yeah. Well, thank
So,
you for that.
yeah.
And I completely agree. And I love that you are always an advocate for women's safety and an expert in violence in so many different forms so that we can eliminate it, so that we can also eradicate it from places where it doesn't belong. It doesn't belong anywhere, but especially when you go to a workplace, that's the last thing that should happen in a workplace. And so I really appreciate that. We just celebrated the International Day against violence for women. And it's just really important that we're discussing this today. And I'm so grateful. But before I ask you about your work, because I admire and love the work that you do, would you tell us why is it important that we share stories like this that are so delicate, so difficult to share, and so tender to the receiver? They trigger and activate something within us. And I have physical reactions to everything that you're sharing and tears and sniffles. Um, and yet, I am so grateful that you shared it. Why do you feel that it is important for us to share these stories of violence and attacks and assaults that are so deep within us?
I think if you asked me 10 years ago versus now, my answer would be really different because I would share types of incidents for education or training, but never personal experiences. And I think one of the things I've learned is that our vulnerability is one of those things that connect us. And we share our vulnerability in our stories and in our lived experiences. And I think it's never been a strength for me to share my own vulnerability. I've always been the receiver of comforting others, and I'm very comfortable in that role. But to share my own experiences, especially when you feel like you share it with a trusted source and then they flip that script on you or they deny that, it just reinforces that we shouldn't share. But one of the crucial points of connecting is because it brings healing. And I think sharing those stories, it's relatable. It's our human experience. And we are all human and trying to find our way. And I think when we connect with one another, we're really able to start to acknowledge and heal that darkness.
Yeah.
And I think it's essential to share those stories so that darkness doesn't devour us.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
I think it's very easy to retreat and to just live with it or to ignore it. But our bodies know, our minds know, and it never really goes away then.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for that. I can also follow up that question with what about retribution? Because I remember one time where I had a double date with a friend. I was probably 18 years old, and it was her boyfriend who I knew really well and was, regarded as the best boyfriend ever. His cousin, who he was trying to set me up with, and my friend and we went to a karaoke night. It was really a sweet experience. And I was the last one to be dropped off by him. And I remember the horrific experience that I had. And then I proceeded to tell my friend, and that friendship was completely over. And it was sort of like it was my fault. I did something wrong, and I should have never told my friend. Um, and it was a friend that I really loved, and that was scary for me in moving forward and telling my truth. It kind of shut me out and shut me down. And so it took a long time for me to speak my truth and to tell these things. And you are a workplace expert. And this is a different scale. It's not I'm 18 and I like my friend and her boyfriend is a predator, has this predatory behavior. So tell us about that. How do you navigate those situations?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for that experience. And that is relatable. That is the unspoken piece, right? The reaction and the collective loss. So now there's not just trauma, but there's loss because of sharing. And then there's disbelief or there's speculation. Imagine a world where we didn't have to worry about someone's reaction and that we didn't have to worry if we would be believed. We didn't have to worry if we would be questioned, more than the actual offender. So, violence against women, and particularly when we see that in our homes and it spills over into our workplaces. I come from I spent my whole career working in or around emergency services. And so I have seen a ton of and experienced and witnessed a ton of violence and trauma and individuals actively going through crisis. And so when we look at how we have to navigate those things, often there's this belief that it doesn't really exist in our workplace, or in the situation where I come from healthcare, it's part of the job.
Mm,
People aren't having their best day. People are
mm,
confused. People are in crisis. They're
mm,
dealing with a lot. And so there's this assumption or belief that you just have to accept it, or
mm.
that it's part of the job that you chose. Too bad.
Wow.
And that is not the reality. And so I am really, really passionate about changing that and really protecting both the physical and psychological safety of people in their workplace and in their lives. And so I work to help individuals and organizations recognize how to change that narrative. So much of what we do, even when we have robust awareness of it happening, most of the programs that exist are after the fact.
Hmm.
Well, we have someone you could talk to. We have somebody you can see for your injury or your wound or your physical injury.
Yeah.
And of course, those are very, very needed, but the damage is already done.
Hmm.
We can't be reactive. We have to change that script. The only way that we start to eradicate violence and violence against women and violence in our workplace is to become proactive
Yeah.
and to stop it before it escalates to injuries and trauma. And so that's something I'm deeply, deeply passionate about as somebody who has experienced violence for my entire career. I've had to become resilient. I've had to learn evidence based ways to
Mm,
prevent those types of things.
yeah.
And so I really feel everyone can benefit from learning how to navigate conflict, learning
Mhm.
how to set boundaries and have a voice, learning how to speak up even when it's uncomfortable, and
Mhm.
learning how to evaluate threat and risk before it becomes a threat and a risk.
Oh, this is so good. And I know that you provide training and you do speaking for organizations to help them with strategies and tangible tools to do this.
Yeah,
And I'm really sad to hear that you've been through so much violence throughout your career. And it is not a new career.
no,
It's decades of experience, both as an advocate, as a caregiver, as a first responder, as someone who is a healthcare worker, but also someone who is experiencing violence concurrently with all of this. And as an educator, but also facing the, the I would say the feedback of this is not something that happens here. And so I really want to highlight that you have experienced so much violence and invalidation, and that makes you a perfect educator in the field. And and I love what you said about I had to become resilient. I think we praise people for being resilient, and people praise us for being resilient, and we don't understand that sometimes that's the only option we have, because there is not a system in place to prevent violence, to prevent conflict that is unnecessary. Conflict sometimes is necessary and it creates innovation and it
yeah,
is healthy conflict. So I really appreciate what you do and that you bring this just richness of work to corporations and organizations that truly, truly need it. I believe that everyone should definitely hire Kim to help understand how to put an infrastructure of prevention in their company.
thank
And
We're
oh, thank
actually, I
you.
have with my business partner, if I can mention,
Oh, yes.
um, we are launching a software platform to help organizations do exactly that.
Yeah.
It's called Optics, and we're rolling it out in healthcare first, but then education and hospitality and customer service,
Wow.
all of these areas where we can improve customer experience, improve patient outcomes, and improve the staff experience.
Yeah.
And really, safety starts with the staff. Your customer expectations will never get there if your staff don't feel safe to go above and beyond and help. And so I'm really, really excited about optics. We're starting our pilots and
Yeah.
really gonna change some workplaces to develop some programs that are robust and preventative. So really excited about that.
Absolutely. I'm excited too. I mean, it sounds amazing. And we will leave all of the information in the show notes so that everyone can check it out. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Thank you.
And so tell us a little bit about all of the work that you do. So not only with this revolutionary software in your speaking and your consulting, tell us a little bit more about this work and why it's so essential.
Yeah, so we've already just talked about one story. There are countless stories that everybody has where they didn't stand up, or they would have maybe changed how they responded to a situation, or maybe where they're holding on to something that is not theirs to hold on to. And, to kind of go back to what I was just saying, it doesn't just sit with us, it transforms our interactions. not in a positive way. It retreats us, it makes us retreat into ourselves. It makes us more hesitant and skeptical to connect. It results in negative outcomes for patients or customers or family members that we would have otherwise desired to connect to. And conflict, I'm not conflict avoidant by any means. It is a reality. We're not all the same and we're not going to agree. And
Mhm.
so until we learn how to manage conflict with respect to all people's boundaries and to be able to identify where those trigger points are, where those threats and risks are, we are inadvertently trampling all over them, which just escalates situations and can result in really terrifying experiences and both physically and psychologically damaging harm.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you bring in these solutions and these strategies and these tools like your software will do, what is the possible outcome? What is the vision?
Yeah.
What is possible because of what you do?
Yeah, the piece that keeps us going, right? The piece that keeps me going is restoration of safety,
Hmm.
restoration of peace of mind and physical peace in an environment where I am working to help others, right? If I have to worry about my own safety, I am not my best at working to help others.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're really talking about improvement of communication,
Hmm.
prevention of gender based violence, prevention of workplace violence, and prevention of spillover of domestic violence into our workplaces and into our own lives. And so I think the outcome of the workshops that I do and the software that we're rolling out is
Mm.
a cultural shift to one of awareness and proactive action based steps so that we're not just victims and we're not just responding. You know,
Yeah.
we're talking about identifying things early so we can eradicate things like active shooters
Mm.
and things
Mm.
like discrimination in our workplaces.
Oh,
Subtle pieces that exist everywhere but don't have a platform because all of those microaggressions build
yeah.
and cause resentment.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is so good and my head is spinning with so much. Because when you mentioned the spillover of domestic violence, I thought about the spillover of these outcomes into homes.
Yeah.
You know, the opposite is true because when you learn to set boundaries, and this is something that you've mentioned, when you understand the feeling of peace and safety is something that you want to continue to create in every area of your life. So could you tell us a little bit about boundaries because you've mentioned them throughout the conversation, but also where can we start? Like, is there a piece where we can start to feel that peace and that sense of safety that we all need in every aspect of our lives, and that if we start to create it from the workplace into the homes, into motherhood, into parenting, into schools, into every aspect of our society, communities are going to thrive, and we're going to definitely, like you said, not only be more productive, but also feel more empowered.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Um, I think it really starts with understanding that we have to teach people how to treat us. We have to teach people what is okay with me and what isn't. And most people immediately will respond to that, right? And hopefully appreciate knowing how we can connect closer and how to bring us together. But I would ask people to start to look back at those situations. Maybe identify one time where you're holding on to something that wasn't yours to hold on to, or a time where you felt like you didn't effectively set a limit or communicate to your satisfaction a boundary, and reflect on that situation. And we're going to dissect it a bit. And it's okay for emotion to come up around that. But I think it's important to then look a little bit more analytically and to acknowledge and validate that this is not yours to hold, and to see how we can then switch that to a limit setting conversation. If I had to do it again, I can't go back and change the past, but how would I adopt or adapt my communication to improve that if I had to do it again? And I think that starts with some of the things that I call conversation starters or sentence starters. You know, if we have language around it, even if it feels uncomfortable, I can adopt someone else's language initially until I'm comfortable starting to create my own. So things as simple as, when you yelled at me, I was very uncomfortable or I felt unsafe. Even
Mhm.
after the fact, it's okay for us to go back and share that. If you are screaming at me, I'm not able to fully listen.
Mhm.
Where I am advocating for limits, everyone has their own personal limits. So there are situations that are really complex to navigate, but it starts with creating a little bit of safe space for yourself, or finding who that safe person is that can help you. So I would
Yeah.
ask people listening to probably find one of those situations. And
Mhm.
now, in your present mind, let's look at how we can change some of those conversations, those sentence starters, and embed that so it becomes a natural habit to be able to teach people what's not okay.
I love that. It's about speaking up for yourself
Yeah.
and really for what you feel and for what your limits are. I like that. I like that a lot. And with the knowledge that people, like you said, will respond to that, um, and some won't. And that is definitely not something that we need to hold. I love that message so much that it is not something that we created. Somebody's actions are theirs and not ours to be accounted for.
And when we start to communicate our boundaries earlier in our relationships or communication, often we will identify those red flags.
Yeah,
Or when someone doesn't respect a boundary, that's a risk, that's a threat.
yeah.
And that's their actions. But I
Hmm.
can now also have preventative actions in many situations, not all, but in many situations
Yeah,
that will allow me to make more informed choices. We don't push ourselves to identify what am I okay with, where is my limit, or where is, what am I okay with, until that limit is violated.
yeah.
And so when we're recognizing our own boundaries earlier, we know how to navigate our own safety better.
I love that. I love that. And I think, one of the things that I can tell in my own life that prevented me from speaking up what my boundaries and limits were to be perceived as someone difficult, to be
Yeah,
perceived, to not be liked, which was a fear of mine. And so I think, understanding, being self-aware enough to know that our safety is worth those perceptions that are really not up to us. I just want to say that because I know that is something that in our society is prevalent, is how women who set boundary,
mm,
especially, because there is a gender disparity and a gender-based assumption and stereotype that women who early on establish those boundaries are seen as difficult, bossy, aggressive, masculine, which masculine is not even a bad thing. Right, but it is something that we get as a bad label to ourselves, and so I wanted to acknowledge that, and I know I'm conscious of time. I could talk to you for 10 hours, but it is just so important that we talk about this.
yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. And that is so true, that we often fear the reaction more than we fear the damage that we are willing to just accept. But one thing that I want to say is, I'm in the place I'm in because of allies and male advocates and peers who saw me. I've worked in a male dominated industry for the majority of my life, in the fire department, in security, in public safety, in 911. Healthcare is, of course, heavily female dominant. So I've had both experiences. However, the reality is, I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't have male mentors that are willing to reach out and raise me up and say, listen, she's very reasonable, she's very rational, this is not a dismissive thing that she's talking about. And
Mm.
so I want to be cautious in the sense that I am absolutely advocating for safety of everyone, and particularly safety of women,
Yeah.
and those, that doesn't exclude men. Like, in fact, that means we need more men who are
Yes.
in this cause, because
Yes.
they are the ones that will transform the culture. They are
Absolutely.
that can make it safe for all of us, for sure.
Absolutely. 100%. We need each other.
Yeah,
And when we show up for each other, miracles happen.
yeah.
That's just so beautiful. That's a great note to end in. And thank you for the amazing tips. I hope that everyone rewatches and writes those conversation starters because they are so powerful and just the beginning of a ripple that is safety and prevention. And I know that people can connect with you and follow you online, and we will put all of that information in the show notes. But is there anything that you want to share on how to start connecting with you right now?
Sure. Well, you can check out my website at opticshc.com, and my email and way to connect with me is on there as well. I can also give k.urbanek at at opticshc.com. So we can put that in the show notes, making sure I named it all correctly. But
Okay.
yeah, I would love to reach out to anyone and work with anyone that's looking for workshops or keynotes and some practical, small ways that we can really start to really create large impact.
Absolutely. And I can vouch for her because she's a certified transformational storyteller. So I definitely know that she will make a difference in your event and your prevention and mitigation program. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Kim, for being part of the Transformational Storyteller show. You are a light. I am sure that this was very uplifting for everyone else. It has been for me every time I'm in the presence of your expertise and your wisdom. I grow and I am inspired. Thank you for who you are, and thank you for being just an outstanding human to everyone around you.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat, and you're always an inspiration. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Mwah. And thank you, everyone. We will see you again on the next Transformational Storyteller show. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.